Ok, good evening for Italian people. Buonasera a tutti, popolo di GG Italia e chi altro sta seguendo questa live. Sono così felice di ospitare qui stasera una persona speciale, a very special woman, superwoman, Wonder Woman, and a friend, a very friend of mine, best friend. Lei è stata una delle prime persone che ho incontrato dopo essere diventata trainer, che mi ha spinto a fare la domanda da Innovator. You push me to my Innovator question, so I do my thing, and then the rest is history. Il resto è storia. So thank you, Stephanie Rothestein, for coming here today. Thank you so much. We have the same T-shirt. Oh,
we do. Look at what
wow, we don't agree about this. Oh, wow, fantastic. Okay.
That's a good sign for today.
Yes. Allora, l'idea che ha Stephanie è quella di presentare. You are going to present, and then ogni tanto lei farà delle pause, io potrò spiegare delle cose e magari tradurre le vostre domande per lei. I will translate questions in the chat for you and translate something for the presentation to the people in chat if they need to. So, scopriamo il nostro colore. Let's discover our color, true color. Ho già scritto nel box informazioni, nel description box, il link al test se non l'avete ancora fatto. I am orange. You know that, right? I am the perfect orange. So let's start with the presentation.
Happy to. Okay, I'm going to share my screen then for you there. Give me just a moment. Un momento. Okay. Here we go.
Oh, wonderful. Un momento.
Okay. All right, so here we go. This is Can We Talk? Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction, Filomena, and I am so happy to be here with GG Italia. You are the queen here, and I am more than happy to join you. So this presentation, Can We Talk, came after a long history. I have been in education for 18 years, and you can find me here at Steph EdTech for Twitter. You are more than welcome to follow Can We Talk, but I'll take you through what it really means. And so it is a personality assessment. The link for it can be found here. We have one that Filomena translated into Italian that you all are welcome to take to find out your true color. And Filomena, as you know, mentioned that she is an orange. I am a green. And we will talk about what those mean. There are 4, and we'll talk about those in just a moment. But I'll pause in case you wanted to translate anything, Filomena.
Yes, no problem. At the moment in the chat, we have people that already did the test, and they can wait to discover what means what their color means. So let's start.
Perfect. Okay, so one of the things that is wonderful if you're trying to present even with your students or staff is to do it just as Filomena has, which is you have them take it, but you don't tell them what it means. And the reason is that everyone comes excited to this presentation to hear about it and to figure out how they want to apply it and use it. And it makes for a really collaborative and connected experience in learning about the true colors. One of the things that I always say at the beginning is I provide norms that are right here on this slide in letting everyone know that every color in the true colors is needed. We have to use it for good, and it is important that we use it. It is intended to help find the strengths in other people. It is not intended to make anyone feel less than, and we are always assuming the best of intentions of other people, and the goal of this is to grow. So, a little bit of background. Can We Talk? And this whole survey came out of my Innovator project, one of a few. And I had been using personality assessments in my classroom for 18 years. I found that I needed a way to really connect with students and help them to learn how to talk to each other. I also found the same thing was true for talking to parents. and talking to staff. So right now I'm going to finally take you through. I'll ease your fears and I'll calm you because you've been waiting to know what they actually mean. So as you know, there are 4. It comes from a survey called the True Colors Survey, which was made in 1972 by a scientist named whose last name was Ketterman. It was called the Ketterman Survey for a while. And so the 4 colors are gold, green, blue, and orange. And our gold that you can see in the left top corner, our golds are guided by routine. They like order. That's why you have a clock on there. They like to know that things are being done and are precise. And they are calmed by rules. They are calmed, as I mentioned already, by having a routine. So having a list, checking things off, knowing that they are doing what a teacher would call, quote, right. They want to know that they are following in the lines. Here in the United States, when people bowl or do bowling on a lane, we have sometimes for little kids those bumpers, like these little air pockets that go on the side of a bowling lane. And I often feel like a gold likes to know that they are in their lane, right? They don't want to veer outside of that lane. They want to know that they're in the right place. They stay in line. Our greens are our big picture, big thinkers. They are ones who ask questions often. And our greens are often called our like big idea people. So our greens are really guided by asking deep questions and knowing that their questions are meaningful and that those questions bring them to more questions and deeper understanding. But a green is not going to do anything if they don't understand the purpose or the why. Even if it's a teacher who tells them to do it, a green wants to know, how is this going to be beneficial? What is the entire point of this? Otherwise, why should I embark on it? So a green really needs to understand deeply why it is that we do what we do. Blues are guided by the heart. So you can see the heart that is right here. Our blues are our feelers. So before they respond, they want to know that they are valued and that every person in the room is valued as a person. And they connect on that heart-to-heart level. What a blue really needs to know is that you care deeply about them, you value them, you hear them, you honor everyone's voice in that room, and they tend to be the glue in a group. So they ensure that everyone is okay. They reach out to people. It is a natural part of them to ask someone else, how are you? That's typically the first thing that a blue will do versus talking about themselves. They will want to know that everyone in that space is okay, and they feel best when everyone is in harmony in a team. And last but not least, our oranges, our Philomenas, our oranges that are out there. The reason that why there's a bright sunshine on this one is that our oranges tend to bring that sunshine to a team. They often are people that are extremely charismatic and maybe even are the ones who might get up in front of the group and present on behalf of the team. It doesn't mean that others would not, but our oranges tend to be less fearful about doing it, perhaps even without notes or at the last minute. And they would turn to a team and say, oh yeah, no problem. You want me to present? Let me get up there and do it. Right? Is that you, Philomena? Right? No problem. And they'll just jump right in. Our oranges also like a very quick pace. So something will, like even me staying on this slide for this long, an orange is going to say, can you move it along? I get it. Let's go. So an orange is always wanting movement. They typically are, like in general, oranges gravitate towards sports because it involves a competition, it involves movement, it involves action. It doesn't always mean that's true, but they like the idea of that. And so games often in class draw an orange to them. And then our oranges also do really well, as I mentioned, at doing things last minute. So sometimes an orange might wait much longer than a gold. And that's because they tend to be driven by that adrenaline of this is due right now. I need to figure out what's right now, right? Whereas a gold is a little bit more planned out. A green is a bit more strategic in approaching it, and a blue wants to know that every person's voice is being heard. So everyone approaches a situation, a problem, a challenge differently because it's what appeals to them. I have a few slides here that kind of take you through that a little bit more deeply if you are presenting this to other people or to students. Sometimes to be able to focus on one color at a time is helpful. So these are here for you if you want to use them. I included them in the presentation. So it has each of these, and it has, see if you can see here, this piece relates to the competition part. One of the things I did want to go back and mention is a bit about feedback. So some of the biggest things that I have learned from using this, both with my students, staff, parents, everyone, my own family, is the way that I need to help everyone learn how to talk to each other, including me, right? I learned so much through this process. So one of the things that I've come to understand is the way to approach each of these colors. So for instance, with a blue, I always have to approach a blue if I'm an English teacher, but I also teach educational technology. So when I approach staff members that are blue, or if I approach a student, I have to make sure that they know that I value them. So if I give feedback, if I have feedback on my notebook for a student, they've just given a presentation or they've just written a paper, the first thing that I need to say is something positive to a blue. And it's what we call here, I've heard the term here in the US, I don't know if it's universal, it's called sandwiching your feedback, where you take the feedback, maybe it's a critique, a critical critique, something that you need to let them know about, and you sandwich that between two things that really are positive about them and about their work so that they actually can hear it. So the first thing that I would say to them is, I think you did a really great job on that presentation, or I love some of the ideas in this paper. It is clear that you did a ton of research. Right? Something that is clear that they hear that I saw the work that they did and that I value them for it. Then I give them the critique or the feedback. And I would say, okay, in this part of the paper, one of the things I want you to focus on is how to add a bit more. I want you to extend your sentences in this area because I think your ideas are more complex. And right now you're giving me some short, choppy sentences. And then I'm going to end it with another positive. But overall, I feel like you understand the purpose of this writing. You get what to do. You've gone very deeply in it. Let's just focus on that one little thing, right? Because a blue, the first thing they're going to hear when you circle something on their paper, the first thing they will do is go, this teacher hates me. You've never said you hated them. You didn't say you didn't like them. You didn't say they were a bad student, but that's how they interpret any circle on a paper, any cross out, anything that you say, because they take it to heart. So if they do something that is wrong, they think that they are wrong as a person. Because a lot of times, right, others might be able to separate the feelings about work and themselves, but a blue, those are very intermixed. And so a blue will very much internalize it. They might not say it out loud in that moment, but they will internalize it. And so it's important that we help them to know that they're valued. For an orange, that rooted question is, how is this going to apply to me? Right? They are guided by knowing that this is about them. And so in my feedback with an orange, if I'm talking to Philomena, if I'm writing something on her paper, I need to make sure that I start with her name so that she knows it isn't something that I wrote on everyone's paper. Because typically, if I put a stamp on something, or if I write the same comment, an orange will often turn to a neighbor if it's a student and go, what did she write on your paper? And if they see I wrote the same thing on everyone's, they throw it away, right? It was nothing to do with them as a person. So I need to make sure that I address an orange directly because they need direct, accurate feedback. And an orange also needs something where it is directed at them. So one of the things I often think about is an orange. An orange is really, if you tell an orange, you need to fix, like as an English teacher, work on the grammar in your paper, they're going to throw it away. An orange needs to know what are the specific spots in this that you want me to look at. So I need to say to an orange, in the third sentence, in your second paragraph, notice what you did here. Let's focus on, and then I can guide them through some questions. But if I don't direct them to exactly where to go, an orange is going to distract themselves and say, she hasn't really told me anything. She just gave me some general stuff that she told to everyone else. So I have to make sure that it is specific and that it engages them. And the way to engage them is by asking them to go deep into something specific and to feel like it's motivating, right? There's got to be a reason to do it. And orange does really well if the feedback is timely. So if this was something from 2 months ago, an orange is going to go, what's the point now, right? I've already moved on. I moved on during the course of this project. So an orange does really well if you do feedback during the course of a project. So I do that with all of my students, but feedback is only useful if they can actually do something with it. So if you're giving feedback, don't wait until after something is due. That's not when you give feedback. Feedback has to be done during the time when they can actually fix it. And that the fixing equates to the points, because an orange does really well knowing, okay, at this point, this would be a 70%. So if you want to improve that, I want you to do these 3 things before the actual due date so that you can raise that, right? Whatever it might be. Then all of a sudden they're going, oh, there's a reason to do it. She's given me specific feedback. It's got my name on it. She knows who I am. Okay, so that's the feedback for an orange. It's really crucial. For a green, as I mentioned, is guided by questions. So when you give feedback to a green, you want to help them to get there to get to their place for themselves. So I am a green, if you don't already know that. So I'm always asking questions. And what I don't want is somebody to say, here's what you should do next, because I want to figure it out. Like, I take pride in knowing that I have figured out my path. So for a green, what you want to do is you want to ask them those deep questions that are what we call those open-ended questions, right? So it might be that when I'm giving feedback to a green on a paper, I might circle something and say, why did you make the choice? Why did you make that choice to talk about this main character in this way? And let them answer that question. And through their answering of the question, I can then say, oh, when you talked to me about that, or when you just wrote me that answer, that is a little bit different than the way I interpreted it. Might there be a way that you could include what you just said in your paper so that everybody who reads it can understand your thought process? I didn't tell them to do it. I asked them a question that guided them to an answer. And so for a green, that is what is extremely valuable, is that question guidance, that open-ended question guidance. Because a green really is rooted in knowing that something has research behind it, something has been vetted. Like, if somebody brings me something and they said, I did this one time in my classroom, for me as a green, I want to know that you've been doing this for years and years and how it's gone in each of your classes and what makes it differ. And I'm going to ask you a ton of questions that might annoy you, but I want to know those before I even will step into it at all. A green likely on a survey like this would say, what's the point in taking it? Can you give me more information before I even try it? And why would I use this? How is it? Like, they're asking all of that. And it isn't meant to be mean, but a green can sometimes come off as they're asking all these questions. Why won't you just try it? But for a green, there's like there's not a willingness to do that unless there's a purpose in it. It has to be purposeful and meaningful. Otherwise, right, I would say a green is strategic. And so if I'm going to spend my time on it, it needs to be worth my time, is the way a green typically will respond. And then last, a gold. And our golds, again, when it comes to feedback, though, when it comes to how I respond to them as an instructor or a person, and when I talk to them, a gold wants me to get straight to the point, but a gold also needs to know that I really have looked at every single thing they've done. Because a gold, if you have a rubric, if you have a way to grade, a gold has already looked at it and they've judged it based on an exact interpretation of what you wrote. So if I wrote something and they saw the words and they did the thing, if my directions were not clear enough, it might be the reason why they misstepped. And so often with a gold, I will have to say, I see what you did here. And for the first piece on that rubric, I'm now understanding it wasn't as clear as it should be. What I meant to say in the rubric was this, and I'm sorry if it wasn't clear. So I'm going to give you another chance to fix this piece up so that it aligns, because I know you did your very best and it was aligned to what you felt like the rubric said. So I often find with a gold, it isn't purposeful if something either isn't there. It's that they followed the directions to a T, as we say, but maybe my directions were not clear enough. And often I will show a gold my rubric or my directions before and get questions from them, because a gold will have some good ones that go with routine and wanting to know that it makes sense, and that they can follow the directions, because those are super important to them. It's also important that a gold feels valued, as I mentioned, they want to know that what they do is right. And in my class, sometimes that's hard because I'll say certain things, there isn't a right, but you did a great job on it, right? And so it's about helping a gold maybe to feel solid in their own perspective or viewpoint, but it doesn't make it wrong. Golds are great. Golds are your leaders in a team typically, and they'll look around hoping somebody else will lead sometimes, but they find that they're the ones that are like, well, I get what to do, and I know how to align here. I know what the teacher wants, so let's just do it. And then they'll move a group forward. So everyone plays a different role when it comes to a team, and every person is extremely needed in that space. That's the overall of those before we go into anything more. I know I talked a long time there, Philomena, so I'll pause for a second if there's anything else before we go into applications of it.
Yes, I would like to summarize in Italian if it's okay for you.
Of course.
Ok, allora il test che abbiamo fatto anch'io, ripeto, lo potete trovare nel box informazioni, quindi lo potete fare adesso, ci vogliono veramente pochissimi minuti, vi fa scoprire il colore che voi avete, il colore della vostra persona. Ovviamente è un test che ha qualche anno, quindi non è recente, ma Stephanie col suo progetto di Innovator l'ha trasformato applicandolo a quello che è il mondo appunto della scuola. Quindi come possono i colori aiutarci con i nostri studenti? Ma questo è un test che si può fare anche quando si entra in un team, quindi si può assolutamente proporre you could do this test also when you know new people in the staff, so you can organize the thing. È un test molto importante perché fa già venire fuori delle caratteristiche delle persone che vi circondano, e nel nostro caso di docenti, appunto dei nostri studenti, che vi aiutano molto sia a stabilire un po' le caratteristiche a grandi linee, e poi vedremo, Stephanie, come le applicate, come ha applicato i colori nella sua classe, ma anche per entrare in contatto con gli studenti e far sì di poter dare un feedback relativamente al colore di quello studente, perché ci sono i gold, abbiamo visto gli oro, che sono delle persone assolutamente molto precise, se vedete il simbolo, c'è il simbolo dell'orologio, hanno bisogno di pianificare tutto, hanno bisogno di avere tutto sotto controllo, quindi sono molto precisi, e anche il feedback che viene dato loro deve essere molto dettagliato, perché altrimenti non non diamo loro la giusta soddisfazione. I verdi invece sono portati ad andare in overthinking, come si dice, quindi pensano molto, e il feedback che voi date non può essere superficiale, ma deve essere molto approfondito, perché sono persone e studenti che tendono a chiedere sempre il perché delle cose. I blu abbiamo detto che sono le classiche persone che tendono ad essere molto empatiche e molto sensibili, tendenzialmente fanno stare bene gli altri e se stanno bene gli altri loro stanno anche molto bene, quindi un qualsiasi feedback negativo lo vedono come un feedback, cioè lo sentono molto, il rimprovero o il segno rosso è per loro un colpo molto forte, quindi bisogna stare molto attenti anche a come ci si approccia nel caso di correzione o feedback a questi studenti. Gli orange invece partono sempre in quarta e mi riconosco, vogliono fare sempre tutto, sono sempre i primi della fila, e quelli che sono competitivi al massimo devono sempre vincere, sono io. Però appunto nel momento in cui si dà un feedback, loro tendono a darle poco peso, quindi ci deve essere un po' di sintonia tra il docente e lo studente arancione, che appunto deve avere questa linea di comprensione da parte di entrambe le parti. Il professore deve avere questo tipo di approccio molto, molto cauto, perché gli arancioni tendono un po' ad essere esagerati in tutto, sì, sì, è così, mi riconosco molto. Adesso vedremo con Stephanie come poter utilizzare. Now we are going to use this tool, these colors in the classroom. We see how you use in the classroom e vedremo appunto come li possiamo utilizzare il test appunto con i nostri ragazzi. Vi ricordo che Stephanie mi ha chiesto di tradurre in italiano. Stephanie, I translated the resources in Italian, così voi avete, se andate sul sito di Stephanie, che adesso vi metto, è già nel box informazioni, ma adesso ve lo rimetto in chat, potete assolutamente andare su risorse in italiano, trovate il test, trovate la spiegazione, trovate la presentazione, quindi potete già da domani poter replicare quello che ha fatto Stefano. Quindi I finish, you go in the classroom. You can go in the classroom.
Okay, here we go. Thank you so much. So the next part, so that had a little bit more of, I should have just said, thank you, Philomena. All right, here we go. So now we're on to uses. So here's how I've used it in the classroom, and all of these are on the website. I will show you that in a moment. But I have loved actually getting to use these in my classroom with my staff. So one of the things that we do is when we get to first know one another, I take this and everyone they can make a slide. You can use it in your classroom or out, depending on if you're virtual or hybrid or returning. And sometimes people will line their walls with them. We saw one example of a school in Ohio that took and made puzzle pieces, and each student put their name on a different color puzzle piece, and then they put it up and it formed one large puzzle that was made in all different colors. I've had it where students would then paint those. I've done it where students make their names on different colors that they keep in the classroom. So there are tons of ways to apply it, but it's important that a student takes the time to reflect on what it actually means to have this personality and learning style trait. Because it doesn't mean that you're locked into this forever. It doesn't mean that I will always be a green. And if I had taken this test 10 years ago, it would have been a different color, most likely. At some point in our life, right, it starts to stick. But I would say, especially if you're working with young people, these things are ever morphing and flexible. And there are times, depending on what you are dealing with, where certain parts of your personality and learning style may be coming out more than others, right? We all have a balance of all of these, and it's just what is it that is working for you in this moment. So sometimes I have students that are more than one. We will alter it. We could make something that's a hybrid of the colors. And so this is one example of a slide. The one in the bottom left corner where it says sample group is a group slide. So as a class or as a team, you could have one shared slide that has this as the background, and then everyone drags their picture or embeds their picture on this slide on their color. So you could see as an entire class, where are we? I even used this, it's not on here, but I used this recently in Jamboard in Google, where I made the Post-its the different colors that each of the students then was their dominant color. And that's how I formed teams. Thank you to Becky Calling for that idea. It was awesome. And then I had those teams. I could duplicate the Jamboard and use it again and again as I made different teams. And I try to balance the teams in terms of different personality colors. The last one that's right here is how I introduce myself to my students. After the first 2 days or 3 days of class, one of the things that I try to do is help students understand the technology we'll be using in the classroom, get their feet wet with it, and try to do something that helps us to connect with one another. So after taking the assessment, I then give them this option where they get a slide. I've already pre-made the slides, and the slide they can either use a phone case, a water bottle. Here we call them hydro flasks, like the large metal water bottles, or a notebook. And I have them in all 4 colors, and they're in the gray space around the Google slide, and they can drag that in. So for me, I chose the phone case. I made it bigger, and then I put all these stickers around for them, all of these images that are already cut out. They can find other ones that they want, but they put it all over the slide, and it helps them introduce themselves to the class. We then usually use Flipgrid, and they record themselves talking about the slide. And so I would talk to my class about, okay, you can see I love everything Google. These are TV shows. This is where I went to college, right? You would talk through all the things that are on there. And then I also talk through what makes me a green. Why do I learn this way? What about that personality trait applies to me? How I want people to talk to me or approach me or give me feedback. How I work best in a team. So I'll ask the students to talk through that in their Flipgrid. And then before the team works together, I have someone in that team, each person watch that Flipgrid video and introduce one another to the group in small groups in a breakout space, usually in Meet. So that has been really quite useful and received a lot of positive feedback from students and others. And there are so many more uses beyond this slide. It applies in every subject. I use it in analyzing books with my students. Our history teachers analyze moments in history and real people that existed in history, asking when they reacted in this way, maybe during a war or during some moment in history, right? How were they reacting? What personality color do you think that they were? Right? Were they quick to react in something? Did they take their time? Were they more strategic? This Adam over here is representative of our science teachers, because my science teachers, some of them at our school will use it to represent the elements, right? They'll talk about what are the personality traits of some of the elements, and saying, right, is it something that likes to move around a lot? Will it want to be around other elements or not, right? Like how, and so talking about the personification of them for many helps students to relate or understand things differently. And I find that it changes the kinds of conversations that we're able to have. And the other thing I should mention is there are a ton of personality assessments that are out there, and I have tried them all. What I love about this one is the simplicity of it, to be honest with you. I love that it's 4 colors. I love that I don't have 25 things that I have to do or explain, but that it lets me dive deep. Doesn't mean it's perfect. It doesn't explain every single thing about a person, but it at least gives some insight to begin in the right place and to think about how to approach people in a way that is empathetic and kind and thoughtful. And it's not about me. It's about how do I approach them? How do I approach this learning in a way to better understand from whom I'm reading, right? And who I'm reading about. So it gives me a base that I really appreciate. And then, oh, I'll pause there.
While you are talking, I was thinking about social emotional learning. At this time, I always think about my challenge, and it's always everywhere you can find social emotional learning. Also with your challenge, with your project for Innovation Academy.
Yes. So I love your project, by the way, and I'm so excited for you. And you are doing such great work. And even in talking to you, I learned so much just about the ideas of your project. And now you're diving deep. So when it comes to social emotional learning, one of the things I continue to think about is part of that is helping us to know that we can grow, that we can change, we can shift. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with the way that we are, but it means that there are many things that I can learn out there from the great things of other people. And so one of the things I kept thinking about is we have a grading category at in my pathway that I am the chairperson of called agency. And agency is a grading category that it involves much more than just participation. It's about, are you the agent of your own learning? Are you seeking out opportunities for growth? Are you asking questions? Are you helping others around you? Are you making this learning space better for everyone? Right? So it's big. And in order to actually help students, I teach high school, so grades 9 through 12. But I've used this with much younger and with adults, and we all have areas of growth. And I would say that is part of that social emotional learning, is knowing that where we are in life is not fixed and who we are is not fixed, right? That all of these things we should be trying to deepen and grow ourselves for the betterment of us and for those around us. And so the way that I have tried to embark upon that is each month I have a challenge. The November one will be coming out hopefully later today. And each month what I've been doing is giving each color, each personality color, a challenge to try to do throughout that month to help them to grow. And teachers, myself, what I've been doing is I have my own students journal about it, reflect on it. I even have a reflection survey on my website that teachers are welcome to use, or you're welcome to use with your staff. And so, for instance, for Philomena, for this month, it would be make a plan, list out all the steps of your for your entire team in your current task or project, and volunteer to take on some things first, right? Some specific tasks first. That might be outside of an orange's comfort zone, right? But the idea is that they're learning from some traits, maybe that feels a little bit more like a gold, and that they're able to learn from that to help them to grow and perhaps to connect with other people more deeply in their team. And if we look at a green, right? A green is often thinking, a green can go very deeply on working alone sometimes. So for a green, the challenge this month was check in with 3 others this month. Ask them how they are, how they're doing, to see if they need support. When they share, just listen, because a green often will ask lots of questions or think that they have an answer. And so to challenge a green to go, no, just let someone talk. It's okay. And for the gold, when working with your group, start with a check-in and spend at least 5 minutes actually doing that kind of a connection that a blue would typically want, right? Where a gold usually wants to jump into the work. And for a blue, try being open to being a bit more spontaneous, which for a blue might be different, right? That's learning from an orange. Volunteer to speak for your team twice this month. Typically, that might not be the natural gravitation of a blue. And so from these, hopefully, we can grow ourselves, we can step outside of our comfort zones, and we can learn from the strengths of others.
Wow. You know that you mentioned during our global GAG session about Can We Talk that if you take the test in different moment of your life, you will receive different results. And then I retake the test because I was sure to check. I would like to be sure. And now I am more blue than before. I am always orange. I know that. I always will be orange. But now my blue raise up.
You're growing, as Leslie would say. It's interesting. Leslie Altman has said to me, my goal is to grow my green. She's a gold and she's wanting to grow in that green area. And so for you, you've grown your blue. I love that term. Yes, that's amazing. I think I used to be, I definitely, I shouldn't say I think, I know, I used to be almost all blue. And then I, in one of my early jobs when I was working at my college, I had a boss who helped me, who said, you know, when you're here at work, you're going to be getting lots of feedback. And so part of it is you're going to have to learn how to take that not so much to heart and to learn how to work with people giving you feedback. I was going to be hearing feedback from all the incoming students at the college. So I needed to learn how to go, that isn't about me. And that's really hard. And I think in that process, I learned how to grow. It grew my green, which is now I'm dominant green. It's interesting that I do think that it does naturally happen. It happens if you're open to it, but it does start to happen at different times. Yes. And depending on the makeup of your class, that's one thing I didn't put in here, but I could share with you later is I tweeted about it, but I just did my own jam boards, as I mentioned, where I was made the teams for my class. And it's always interesting when you look at the breakdown of a group, right? Some classes, depending on their grade level, the breakup of the group, may have a lot more of one color than another. And so how do you help them? How do you help in a space where there might only be one gold or one blue? And I often say to my students or to my staff, like, you want to make that person feel extremely valued. You never want them to feel alone. So you want, in a class like that, where you have one or two of a particular color, you want that class to feel like they're fighting over having that person in their group, because you want people to say, I need your voice in this team. Otherwise, we won't be balanced. We would miss you. You're going to help us so much. You know, you want them to be basically fighting over that person. And it does help in the team.
I need I always search for gold people.
Good.
Yeah, I need all gold.
I need them too. I often say, like, I need a gold because I'm that person that's a little bit more, you know, if I say they can do it, I trust them to do it. As a leader, that's me, where I go, we've split this up. I trust you. You'll handle it. I'll check in at the end, right? And a gold is a little bit more like, no, I'm going to make sure it's happening. And so it really helps to have that. And a blue is reaching out to make sure every person is okay in it. And the orange is ensuring that we actually are going to then have some show at the end or some product that people will gravitate towards. Oranges tend to also be really great sometimes at like the social media aspect of pieces, because they get what would be appealing to an audience visually or in a performance, right? So it doesn't mean those are the end all be alls, but it is so helpful to have a balanced group. On the website that's here, and I don't know if it would help if I share a different screen. So I'm going to stop and I'll share. Let me share the website itself. It might be good here.
Why? Okay. I let I and the staff of GAG Italia took the test, and we have so many blue in GAG.
Oh,
blue, one gold and one orange.
So interesting that you have so many blue. I love that.
Yeah,
I love that. So, I mean, it just might mean that you are a team that wants everyone to feel good, that you're connected. I always find it interesting when I go to sessions and there's sessions about, you know, how to connect with your staff or your students. And when you survey who chooses to come to those by their own fruition, right? It's all blues because that's what they care about, right?
I already knew, because when I ask something, they already answer me, oh, okay, it's okay. I'm here for you always. So, I'm so lucky. I am the queen of very
kind. Yeah.
kind people.
I mean, blues really do. They make every person around them feel so good. And it is really kind and wonderful to have blues. And I think one of the things we need to think about is how we make sure that we do that for the other blues around us. So a lot of times a blue will do that for someone else. It isn't always done for themselves. If you're in a room of enough blues, they'll do it for each other. So perhaps GEG Italia is like, it will work out. In harmony.
We have a WhatsApp group where we talk about the organization and staff thing and GG Italia thing. But sometimes we use the group as vent. It's only for vents. So when we have some crazy period, we just wrote and talk about and have a simple chit chat.
And that is true, right? Like a blue is not going to be able to get to work unless they have gotten that out. And so a space for that, the ability to actually get that out, then allows a blue to be in a space of productivity. But unless you give them that space, they're going to sit there and do that to the side. If you are like, we got to get to work, they're going to be having that WhatsApp chat on the side with somebody else in GEG Italia. So you might as well begin there so that they feel like I've been heard, I've connected, I got out those feelings, and now we can focus on the work. Yeah, I agree. So this is, that's amazing though. What an interesting group makeup, I think. And it would be interesting to see how it applies either in their classroom or in their staff, what applies there. Because if you didn't know, most teachers, the majority of teachers are gold. So I think that we, usually it's about 70% of teachers are gold. And I think it's so interesting that, you and I, Philomena, we are in the other ones. Usually green is the lowest. And then orange is just above that, and then blue, and then gold. But I mean, gold takes up the majority. That's typical of teachers. And it doesn't mean that anyone is better than another. It just means it's interesting who gravitates towards what, right? And I think as education shifts, as we shift as teachers, as the way that we deliver instruction shifts, it might then mean that who we are as instructors, we need to figure out how to navigate that in this new landscape. On the website itself that's here, I hope that I've provided, and please continue to give me feedback, a ton of resources for you. And I just want to give an amazing shout out to Philomena for all of her translations. I'll show you where those are in just a moment. On the main site, the main page that's here is the overall. This is a presentation that I gave with Global GEG. This is an amazing drawing that was done, a sketch note, I should say, that was done that might help if someone is asking what the colors mean and you want one visual, that might help you. And then this has some of the resources that I went over. You can actually click on them. It has the challenge. It kind of has all the stuff on this front page. And this has slides that you can use with anyone that has audio embedded in them, and the reflections that I mentioned. So it keeps going, and then it has social media. If you go right under here where it says resources, it has the resources in Italian right here. And so it has the survey at the top that you all took, and then all the resources underneath. So I want to give another giant shout out to Philomena and to Luis Pertuz. So Luis is another GEG leader. He has been amazing. When we moved into being virtual at my school in March, I knew that I wanted to be able to do this with my students in the fall, and I didn't know if we would be staying virtual at that point. And I reached out to Luis and I said, Louise, I need your help. I have this survey. I've always given it on paper. I know there has to be a way to do it digitally. And right away, he helped me. He, of course, said, Stephanie, forms and sheets, forms and sheets.
Yes.
So, right. Yes.
Yes.
So that is what he did. It's changed my life. And he helped me here. So what you can do if you are using, there are two versions of it. There's one that is for younger, for elementary, and there's one that is for high school or middle school, high school age. So here, maybe 5th, 6th, 7th grade, all the way up through 12th. Could use this 40 question one. And that, I would say, what you do here is it uses autocorrect. And so if you're not familiar with that, this guides you through the process of using it. And then it automates. That's how you got that certificate that told you what you were. And so you would need to do that process. And by doing that, you then get to hold on to all the information as the teacher or as the staff member that's initiating this. You can then see all the data. So you can see who is what color. You can see the breakdown. It gives you so much visually. And then this has the presentations in Italian here for you, the same things that are on that front page. And as more and more is created, hopefully we can add more here in Italian for everyone here in GEG Italia. Yeah.
Thank you, Stephanie, for this presentation, for joining GEG Italia. I am so honored that you are here. You are the second innovator. The first innovator of our GEG International Italia was Sandy Basal. She was the first Italian innovator, even if she doesn't talk Italian. So
amazing.
So thank you to be here. Se non ci sono domande, possiamo salutare. If there are no questions, we can stop here, and potete guardare il sito di Stephanie. Vedete in sovraimpressione il suo Twitter, quindi potete raggiungerla su Twitter. Provate a fare il vostro test con i ragazzi, a fare i gruppi, lo ha detto, rispettando almeno tutti i colori per ciascun gruppo, perché ogni colore si bilancia in maniera assolutamente naturale. Per cui thank you, Stephanie, for being here, and see you next week. Bye.
Thank you so much.